You've got shit. I've got shit. We've all got shit. So let's therapize that shit with your host, me, Joy Gerhard. Joy Gerhard. Please note, I am not a therapist. I cannot and do not diagnose anyone or prescribe anything. This is just me, someone who struggles with mental illness, emotions, and intrusive thoughts, sharing what skills I've used with mental illness, emotions, and intrusive thoughts, sharing what skills I've used and how I've used them. Also, trigger warning, in this podcast, I talk about sensitive topics including mental illness, suicidal ideation, self-harm, rape, childhood sexual assault, trauma, and more. I hope so. Listener discretion is advised. If you're new to the podcast, some context for you. I've gotten a ton of value out of doing group therapy and watching others process their shit. In group, I can see other people's patterns and behaviors much more clearly because they aren't to mine. It's such a relief. I want to share this relief with you via this podcast, wherein I practice skills while actually in the thick of shit. Each episode, I typically do an introduction and provide some context. Then I play a recording of me actively dealing with shit. This isn't me talking about psychology, strong emotions, and strong urges. You're going to hear me crying, angry, numb. But my intention is always to move through an emotion, never to stay there. So stick with me, and we'll actually come out on the other side by the end of the episode. Alrighty, let's hop to it. It's been a minute since I've recorded. I've been working on actually doing all the transcripts for old episodes. And what a trip down memory lane that is. I am currently on episodes 1 through 13, the transcripts for those. And it is a lot to go back to where I was 4 years ago and hear what was going on with me at the time. But today we're actually coming back into the present, which is September. I'm going to be having a conversation with my younger sister, Anne, who is going to be my non-judgmental guinea pig. She came on the podcast specifically to have judgments, so we could talk about how to turn judgment language into non-judgment language, which means we gotta define some terms. So let's talk about what judgments are, and also what non-judgments are, at least in the context of DBT. But I want to give you some brief orientation before I play the interview, conversation, whatever. Most of the skills I reference on most of the skills I reference on this podcast are from the DBT manual by Marsha Linehan. DBT stands for Dialectic Behavioral Therapy and is the type of therapy that seems to work best for my brain. There's a link to the manual that's in the description. You can find it both in PDF form and where you can buy a hard copy of it. And when I am quoting the DBT manual, or really anyone else's work other than my own, I will turn on a little bit of reverb. Observatory, or more accurately, an observatory bathroom. I will be referencing handouts from several of the DBT modules in this episode. And there are 4 modules of DBT: mindfulness, interpersonal effectiveness, emotion regulation, and so when I mention a handout that I'm reading from, I'll say something like, "This is from Distress Tolerance Handout 13, or whatever. So you can follow along if you are so inclined. So let's talk a little bit about judgments. What does the DBT manual have to say about judgments? What does the DBT manual have to say about judgments? Actually, not a ton, as it turns out. The majority of what the manual has to say about judgment and non-judgment is from Mindfulness Handout 5, Taking Hold of Your Mind, How Skills. Handout 5, Taking Hold of Your Mind, How Skills. In the mindfulness module, there's two main sections of what to do when being mindful. There's the what skills and there's the how skills. So the what we do when we're being mindful and how we do those things. Those are on mindfulness handout 4, called Taking Hold of Your Mind What Skills. And the 3 things we do when we're being mindful is observe, describe, and participate. How we do those things is on mindfulness handout 5, Taking Hold of Your Mind How Skills, fully and effectively. So putting those two together, those two words, Joy, handouts together, we observe, describe, and participate non-judgmentally, one mindfully, and effectively when we're being mindful. Mindfulness handout 5 spends almost all of its time talking about what non-judgment is. So I thought we could take some time to talk about what judgments are. Some examples of what judgments sound like: good or bad, should or shouldn't, fair or unfair, right or wrong, always or never, all or nothing, name calling. And the things that we judge, well, the things that I judge myself, I judge others, and I judge reality. And inherently, there's nothing right or wrong about judgments. So let's not judge judgments. They do serve a purpose. And like any tool, we can use it in an effective way and we can use it in an ineffective way. It can advance our goals and it can get in the way of our goals. One of my first DBT instructors said that judgments were aggressive certainty, which I quite like. The problem with judgments is that they're not based on fact, typically immutable, meaning that they really don't tend to change over time. Like we're like, this is the way this is, and this is the hill I'm going to die on. And judgments also tend to prevent understanding, both of ourselves and of others. So in a lot of ways, judgments erode relationship. If I'm judging somebody else, it makes it hard for me to relate to them. If I'm judging myself, it makes it hard for me to relate to myself. Ultimately, a judgment is a thought or belief that is not based in fact. As a result, a lot of them belief that is not based in fact. As a result, a lot of them are personal to us. It's personal to me what my judgments are. What I would consider rude, someone else might not consider rude. What I would consider an asshole move, somebody else might not consider that an asshole move. What I consider fun, somebody else might not consider fun. So judgments are really person dependent, dependent on the person who is having them. And I've mentioned this at the top. What I'm sharing are notes I took in DBT group. So these are not written down in the DBT manual, like what I'm sharing with you right now. Ultimately, judgments, they are a survival skill. They kept us alive because it's how we evaluate our environment. Safe is something, good to eat, safe for me to eat, or dangerous for me to eat. Is that person good for me to be around or bad for me to be around? That sort of thing. And typically, they're trying to keep us alive. It is a survival. They're trying to keep us alive. It is a survival tactic. And like any survival tactic, there is places where we use it where it's absolutely vital and places where we use it where it gets in the way of our goals. Like I've mentioned on the podcast before, one of my favorite idioms is when all you have is a hammer, everything is a nail. If the only tool you have is a hammer, there are times when you're interacting with a nail, and that is exactly the tool you want when you're interacting with a nail. But there are times when you need a screwdriver, a saw, and all you have is a hammer. There's times when you just need to unscrew a light bulb, and a hammer will actually cause damage if you use that to try to unscrew your light bulb. So there are times when it's useful and there are times when it gets in the way. And as with all mindfulness skills, the point, even what you're doing, the point is to give yourself the option of choosing something different if you want to. So if you can be aware, if I can be aware, let's just focus on me, Joy. If I can be aware of my own patterns, my own behavior, my own thoughts, it gives my own behavior, my own thoughts, it gives me the option to pick a different way rather than having it be my default setting and is immutable and cannot change and is just running on its own without any input from me. So, judgments, its own without any input from me. So, judgments, there's pluses and minuses, as you might expect. So the skill of non-judgmentally on Mindfulness Handout 5 focuses on doing not that, on being aware of that you have and shifting them. Because we're going to judge. It's part of what our brains do. We judge things constantly. So it's not even necessarily about avoiding having judgments, but rather noticing when you have a judgment and shifting it, which is actually the topic with my sister. How to take the judgments that we have and shift them into something else. So what does Mindfulness Handout 5 have to say about practicing non-judgment? See, but don't evaluate as good or bad, just the facts. Accept each moment like the rain and the sun and each leaf that falls upon it. Acknowledge the difference between the helpful and the harmful, the safe and the dangerous, but don't judge them. Acknowledge your values, your wishes, your emotional reactions, but don't judge them. When you find yourself judging, don't ask, when I notice myself judging, is, what is this judgment trying to do for me? And typically, I will hear an answer, and there's more than one way to accomplish that goal that this judgment is trying to accomplish, and I can accomplish it in a different way. First bullet point here says, see, but don't evaluate as good or bad, just the facts. And one of the analogies that I like to use to help me figure out what the facts are is imagine an alien from another planet standing in the corner of the room, taking notes. And the aliens, all it can record is the sounds that it hears, the things that it sees, the smells that it smells, kind of taking that perspective of that alien of like, I don't know what any of this means, helps me to get out of the judgments that I have or the assumptions that I have about what voice tone or facial expressions or body posture, what any of that means. Additionally, other things that we can observe and practice non-judgment around, I can observe my thoughts. I can observe my body sensations, like my internal body sensations. I can observe my body sensations, like my internal body sensations. So interoception and proprioception also count as things that we can observe. I can't observe those for other people, but I can observe them for myself. And then practice non-judgment towards them. Alrighty, so that's enough about like the background of what a judgment is and what non-judgment is. Alrighty, so I want to get into this conversation with my sister and want to give just a couple kind of, caveat? I don't know. A significant topic, like one of the main topics of the conversation that we had, deals with disability and ableism. So, kind of full disclosure, both my sister and I are white. So you're going to be listening to two white folks talk about our experiences of disability and between disability and race that we don't touch on here because that's not our lived experience. There are times when I veer out of talking about my experience and imagine the experience of other disabled folks, and I'm not wild about the fact that I did that. I really don't want to be presuming about experiences that aren't mine. So just, I really don't want to be presuming about experiences that aren't mine. So just, take that under advisement. And then I start off using the phrase blind spot, which is kind of ironic given that we're talking about disability. And regardless of the origins of the phrase promotes disability. And regardless of the origins of the phrase the phrase promotes ableism. So eventually I revise and use the phrase area of weakness or unconscious incompetence. But I don't start there in the recording, so I just wanted to acknowledge that. And another thing that we're a metaphor that describes the physical or mental capacity somebody has for daily living. It was developed by Christine Miserandino in her essay, The Spoon Theory, which is linked in the description. The idea being that folks with disabilities, chronic illnesses, mental illness, etc., have limited hour to hour, different tasks, different experiences use up our spoons. And if you want to learn more, there's also a link to the Wikipedia page for spoon theory in the description. And one last thing, the conversation with my sister was recorded on September 20th, 2025. This commentary was recorded on September 28th, 2025. So 8 days later.
Hi, dude.
Hello.
Evan.
It's lovely to see you.
See you too, Evan.
A happy day to see you.
See you too, Evan.
A happy day.
A happy day. Now let's not make eye contact for the next hour.
Splendid. Excellent. We've met our eye contact quota.
Yep.
And we can stare vacantly into space now.
Precisely.
Excellent. That's what I had hoped for this conversation. I mean, well, I should introduce you. maybe we should start here. So, to our listeners, I am joined today by my ineffable sister, Anne, who people to track you down.
Great.
There's probably multiple Annes in Vermont, at least 3.
At least, yeah.
And Anne is here to judge.
Woo!
Yes.
To do what I do best.
Happy day. So we're judging and then translating, transferring, transmutating, transitioning something them into non-judgment.
Woo!
So, where would you like to start? Judge away.
Oh boy.
Judge away.
Oh boy. Well, a few years ago, I had a fallout with a dear friend who was a roommate for a number of years, and I've known for, at this point, closing in on 20 years. And they just shut me out in a very hurtful conversation, and we haven't talked since. And this is 2.5 years ago. And I have a lot of judgment about them.
Lay it on me. Lay it on me.
Well, a lot of the things they said were very ableist. For the listeners out there, I am disabled and have a number of chronic health issues. And that came on late in life, or like later in life. Into my adult life. And so one of the things that this person and I had in common was that we were very active together. We would go on hikes together. We would climb together, mountaineer, all kinds of stuff. And so the more it seemed like the more I learned about my health and its decline, the less interested they were in engaging with me.
Lovely. We love that feeling.
Yeah. They shouldn't be that way.
Splendid. I almost spit out my water there. Good timing.
Yeah, they were so hurtful and made me so angry, and some way to get them to see the error of their ways, to see the light, to recognize that their behavior is incredibly hurtful and incredibly problematic. I hate that they said what they said to me. I hate that they ended our friendship the way that they did. I think their actions were really cowardly.
Ooh, good word.
The problem in our relationship had started a few years earlier.
But they didn't say anything, right?
And they didn't say anything. No. In fact, at the time, we talked it out. I thought we had resolved that conflict. And then a few years go by and they say, actually, that's a deal breaker. Which is like, I mean, that happens. We think more about, like, as time goes by, we gain insight. But the fact that she ghosted me for about 6 months because, well, I'm only assuming, but she ghosted me for 6 months before that final conversation to avoid having to tell me that she didn't want to be friends with me anymore.
Yep.
So that feels very cowardly to me. It feels like it doesn't align with the friendship that we had built. For 20 years before that.
So you mentioned that you think that her behavior was cowardly.
Yes.
And do you have are there names you want to call her? Are there names you want to call her?
Oh my God. Yes, there are.
Lay them on me.
I don't particularly like this word to throw it around, but it does come up often in my brain when I'm thinking about her. She's just being a real bitch.
Yeah. Yep.
She's being a bitch.
Yeah. Yep.
She's being a shitty friend. She's being a shitty human. She's also, because of the conversation and what she shared and the way she shared it, it definitely came across as like, I'm better than you.
She thinks that she's better than you? Gotcha.
Yeah. Like, oh, I'm out here in the world trying to like fight the good fight and like make changes and like, you know, do good work. And what are you doing?
Oh, no.
Which is great because I'm disabled. And so my world has inherently shrunk because my capacity has shrunk.
Yes. And also, what the world that is accessible to you is smaller than the world that is accessible to her.
100%.
Yep.
So being judged by that.
It was a personal failing. Like, that's what she was communicating to you, that it was a personal failing on your part.
Yeah. Yeah. Or that it was a choice.
Oh.
Like, I should just choose to be more like her.
That you should be more like her.
Yes. Wrong with me because I'm not like her. I'm not choosing to be like her. Or that I'm no longer the person that I once was, because I can't be.
Right. But rather than understand the cause behind that, she was judging you for that. She was judging you for that.
Yes. Yeah, interesting that this whole scenario, there's just been rules of judgment on both sides.
Well, of course.
Of course. But yeah, I feel like she's been a real ass. I think she has her head way up her ass. Been a real ass. I think she has her head way up her ass. And is doing a lot to try to not have to face whatever truth or reality she sees in me and in my experience and in my life. Like,
having to sit with and confront that disability can happen at any point, that the world, if you become disabled, the world is really resistant to accommodating you. Like, rather than confronting all of those things and having to wrestle with those for herself. And
yeah.
What's that quote from A Knight's Tale? You have been weighed.
You have been measured. You've been found wanting.
Yep, you have been weighed, you've been measured, and you've been found wanting. And it seems like that's what she's saying to you.
Yeah. Yeah. She's you. Yeah. Yeah. She's determined that I am not worth knowing anymore.
Right.
Ooh, another thing that came up is she's a hypocrite.
Ooh, say more.
She talks a big talk about being super enlightened. She reads like a fiend. She reads like all these nonfiction books about the state of the world, and so she's very educated about like what's going on, and like she is very active in a number of social causes, and time was at the local library, and so she was like creating, activities for displaced people and their families, and like so she was very, very active, and I assume continues to be in her community. And like we had really great conversations about like systemic justice and lack thereof, and keep certain groups of people disempowered and disenfranchised. And so the fact that that I feel like our friendship broke in two because she couldn't handle a part of my marginalization.
Yes.
I hate the fact that she's presumably still out there in the world, like thinking that she's this like great paragon of virtue.
That she's enlightened.
Yeah. And that she made a good choice to cut this toxic person out of her life because they were dragging her down.
Did she call you toxic?
She did not. That was my word.
Okay, great.
She did say that I'm very angry, and that she didn't like that I expressed my anger to her.
About her or about the world?
About her.
About the world.
About her.
Oh dear.
Yep. So when she treats me poorly, like ghosts me, doesn't show up for our like Zoom hangouts, just like no word, she just disappears. She blames me for being upset.
Right. If you were a more enlightened human, you would not feel upset by that.
Totally. Because everyone loves to be yanked around.
Ghosted. Yeah. Good feeling. Yeah. Good feeling.
Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like a pretty big lasting judgment, here we are now 2 years later, is that she's a really big fucking hypocrite.
Right. I mean, if nothing else, she's got a massive blind spot around disability. That's I think the most the kindest way to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's one of those people, where I'm not particularly happy to be having these thoughts, but I wish disability on her for sure.
Yep.
And like, I wish she would get something nice and fun that would really impact her ability to show up on a day-to-day basis, to maybe force some empathy on her.
Yeah. Don't get it until it directly impacts them. And not even like, hey, my spouse is now disabled. It has to live in their own body for them to get that it is not a personal failing. It's not a moral failing.
Nope.
It's not laziness or the other things. It's like literally your capacity gets chopped off.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's ironic is that one of her siblings has one of my chronic conditions. And so this ex-friend of mine grew up with a lot of it. So to your point, yeah, it doesn't matter unless it's your lived experience. Sometimes that's what it takes to get it.
Well, there's definitely a difference I've noticed between like how people are treated when they're born with a disability, like how people are treated when they're born with a disability versus when they acquire it. Like we have, I mean, if a baby comes out of the womb disabled, like we don't have judgments about, the baby having moral failings or whatever. Do, but to a much lesser degree than when an adult develops a disability, or even like a child, like later in childhood develops a disability, as indicative of, well, with my having developed listeners, my transmission just conked out on my car. Oh my God, I'm a bad car owner. I didn't take care of my car. as opposed to, yeah, parts run out.
Fail.
Like they fail eventually. All parts on your car will eventually fail. But we have this idea around people that, like, if you're getting a disability, it's because you didn't take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. You didn't do all of the morally upstanding things to take care of your health.
Yeah.
You're a bad body owner.
Yes. Yes. And then there's also this extra layer of like, I'm simultaneously inspired by, and I hate those people who share my disability, but like climb Mount Everest.
Yeah. Yep.
Or like swim across the English Channel, because it's like, that's amazing. And I'm so glad that you are able to do these incredible feats. And like, so that is now the bar that the rest of us are held to. And like, a lot of us have comorbidities and other chronic illnesses to factor into the equation. It's not just like, oh, well, hey, that one guy has your disability and they climbed Everest. So what are you doing on the couch? So I think that's,
I'm totally right there with you, because like we know that there are celebrities who share some of your chronic conditions, and they're out there, you know, acting in movies or touring, singing songs or whatever. We think we're comparing apples to apples, but typically, you know, those celebrities, they have a whole team of people, like helping them manage their doctor's appointments and manage their diet and taking care of their medications and stuff, and looking out for them, and their medications and stuff, and looking out for them and making sure that they're getting rest and whatnot, and taking on their other responsibilities so that they can rest. The folks who are climbing Everest or the folks who are swimming across the English Channel, we actually don't know, well, A, what other comorbidities. We don't know, well, A, what other comorbidities they have or don't have, but also B, what they have going on in their life that allows them to do this thing. This is a weird analogy, but it's what I have. Like, so when I was in grad school, doing, you know, fisheries stuff, all the folks there in that fisheries unit were married to really wealthy people. Because the pay is so bad, no one could make a living with any longevity as a marine biologist. Exactly.
Personally subsidized, yeah.
And so, like, we don't know about these folks that we see out in the public eye, to what degree they are subsidized. How much, like, both in terms of money, but also like energetically subsidized. Do they have to do yourself that eat up your spoons? Do they have family support? Do they have financial support? Like, all of these different things. But when, you know, People magazine or whoever writes up the very inspirational story, they don't necessarily include, or if they do include those things, that this is a subsidization. It's just like, oh, I want to thank my husband for being such a good husband.
Yeah.
When it's, no, actually, like, the husband was literally like raising the kids alone so that his wife could go climb Everest or something to that effect.
Totally. Yeah.
Could go climb Everest or something to that effect.
Totally. Yeah. 100%. Presumably these people who are doing these strange feats don't have horrible ex-friends who cut them out of their lives without so much as a by your leave.
Yeah. Yeah. And that feels, yeah. And that feels really fucking shitty.
Sure does. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I wish I could unmask her. Like, you know, those old like medieval punishments where they would like parade you down the street with
Yes.
this, you know,
Shame.
on a horse.
Shame.
The sign around your neck being like thief or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, not condoning returning to medieval punishments. Like, I would love for there to be that kind of public, that there would be some public acknowledgement that this person is a shit human. That this person is a shit human.
Yeah, well, and especially when there's hypocrisy involved like that they're going out in the world and doing social justice work and interacting with people with a variety of intersecting marginalizations, and that she is just going forth and doing that. And is she causing damage because of this massive fucking blind spot, or this blind spot always feels like, what do we call this?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Unseen area, weak point deficiency.
Weak point.
Oh yeah, non-ableist alternative to blind spot. Guess it's always a question of like, am I assuming it's ableist? Area of weakness.
Yeah, I like that.
But it's an unseen. It's the unconsciously incompetent thing. And for listeners out there, I will post the competency tiers graphic on social media and link to it in the description. Tiers graphic on social media and link to it in the description. That there's things we don't know. Unconsciously incompetent. I don't know that I don't know it. And we can't give any examples there because we don't know that we don't know it. Right. And then there's the things we know we don't know. And then there's the things we know we don't know. So consciously incompetent. I don't know. I know that I don't speak Russian. What do you know you don't know?
How to do a backflip.
Great. So those are our conscious incompetencies. And then there's the things we know we know. I know how to brush my teeth. We don't know we know, which are where we are unconsciously competent. And it's usually if we're listing off the things that we're skilled at, we would not include these things. Usually somebody else has to point them out.
So again, we can't necessarily
list them. Like for you, competent around is diplomacy.
Oh,
putting other people
at the episode to highlight my
I know. Yes. But like I watch you in social settings, and your ability to like put other people at ease. Maybe it's not diplomacy, maybe it's hospitality. But I think that's why you would not include it as a competency of yours. But like watching you, and maybe it's just you masking the ever-loving fuck out of yourself. But trying to put other people at ease and checking in on how they're doing and kind of massage. Yeah.
Well, yours, I don't actually know if you would claim this. I hope you claim this. I think you're one of the best validators I've ever met.
Oh yes, that's a conscious competency.
Oh, okay, good. Well, then I'll have to think harder. Not because there are not many of them, but just because my brain sometimes doesn't work. Many of them, but just because my brain sometimes doesn't work very well.
That's fair. So yes, we were talking about the competency tiers. So this is one of your friends, like, they clearly are unconsciously incompetent here. I'm sure that they would go around declaring how woke, enlightened, or whatever they are around social justice issues, and somehow are blissfully unaware of the degree to which they have no knowledge or no understanding or something.
Yep. That rings true.
Yeah. So if I were to take everything that you had just said and transmutate it into non-judgment, she reacted to your disability in a way that felt really bad to you, that you did not like, and had a really negative impact that was hurtful. She has not done, or at least at that time, had not done work around unpacking her own ableism, her own judgments around disability. You did not see her have that or a willingness to unpack those things. She did not demonstrate a willingness to hear from you the impact that she was having on you. So your anger and frustration with her ghosting you and not being in communication that had a really painful impact on you, especially after having been friends for multiple decades at that point. You had an expectation of what you could count on her for that did not come to fruition, I guess. She had set an expectation based off of a proven track record that you could count on her for certain things. And then that changed.
Yes. Seemingly overnight.
That changed.
Yes. Seemingly overnight.
Seemingly overnight, without she did not provide you an explanation for it.
Yeah.
There is an explanation for it, but she did not share that with you. And then what she did share with you was that you were no longer able to show up in your friendship with her the way she wanted you to. It sounded like on her part, your friendship was based off of shared activities that for her undermined her desire to be your friend. And she had judgments around your lack of capacity. She judged you for your lack of capacity and did not demonstrate an understanding of experience, or she did not validate, she did not internalize why that was for you. Or at least she did not demonstrate to you that she understood.
Yeah.
And that left you feeling extraordinarily hurt. And you had a lot of grief and extraordinarily hurt. And you had a lot of grief and anger around the loss of that friendship and the way it was lost. Like her lack of communication around it, her lack of understanding of your disability, and then, of course, her judgments towards you. And you of your disability, and then, of course, her judgments towards you. And you also have judgments around that she says that she values certain things, social justice, that she cares about marginalized communities. She wants to invest in them and wants to support them and whatnot. And so you are having thoughts and emotions around what feels like to you a disconnect between what she says she values and also what her actions show that she values. She's taking action in various marginalized groups and simultaneously not demonstrating support in a way that you would feel supported around your experience of chronic illness, which has you feeling like there is an unconscious thing, like competence. She does not know that that this is a weak point for her, and has not demonstrated to you a willingness to engage with that, to unpack that, to address it in herself. And because one of your values is like people who are integrous, that's such a I don't like that word. That's a dumb word. Judgment. You really, really value integrity. And so a lack of integrity, a lack of consistency with someone else goes against your own values.
Yeah.
And so typically we judge when something is out of alignment with our own values. So
we listen and we judge.
We listen and we judge. Maybe we don't listen and we judge.
Yeah.
Sounds like, has she communicated that one of her values is integrity?
Not in those words, no. But I mean, I would have assumed that about her previous to our fallout.
Sure. I think say that given all the things that she has demonstrated and said that she cares about, it's reasonable to assume that she's also acting out of alignment with her own values. She just doesn't know that she's doing it. But
hope she's feeling it somewhere in her system.
Yeah.
Hope she's feeling it somewhere in her system.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also makes sense to me that you would wish disability upon her because you have a proven track record of you have experience that people cannot understand your experience until they themselves become disabled. That people's theoretical understanding of disability is so far lacking in terms of it's not enough. It's nowhere near close to being enough. And want to have somebody have an experience that would not guarantee, because there are disabled people who are ableist.
Sure.
And there's certainly a lot of ableism towards other disabilities within the disabled community.
Absolutely. It's like we all have our weak points.
We all have our and there are a lot more of them in the disabled community. Yep. But yeah, so it's not a guarantee that somebody who is disabled would understand somebody else's disabled experience. And it makes sense that you would want to like try to get them as close as experience. And it makes sense that you would want to like try to get them as close as possible. And like we know that usually disability is a journey unless you're born with it. There's usually a journey of unpacking your own ableism, acceptance, a bunch of different things that we go acceptance, a bunch of different things that we go through, that we process when we become disabled. So even if she got disabled today, it might be multiple years before she's finally like, oh God, I get it. You know?
Yeah.
But yes, I understand the desire for that because it's oh God, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've very compassionate and very like thoughtful, non-able-bodied people around me, but they don't get it until they experience it firsthand.
Yep.
And since I don't particularly think of this person fondly anymore, I
disability on people not as like a I call down hellfire and brimstone upon you, but just like
I want to be seen.
Yeah.
I want them to get it.
It's not a punishment. It's more just like, I really wish you got this, which is why, like, as we were talking about discovering we both have high cholesterol, which is not a disability, but it's still like one more health thing.
One more thing, yep.
It's nice. Like, I don't like that you understand, but I love that you understand.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I'm so sorry that you
understand.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I'm so sorry that you are having to navigate one more health thing and then it's that. And also, boy, is it nice to be in it with someone.
Yeah. Like, I had gotten an email of a waitlist that I had put myself on for EMDR therapy waitlist. It is September 2025.
2018.
Spoken like somebody who's like really, really disabled. It was August of 2020. So it was over 5 years ago.
Not good.
But just on wait lists, to not have access to the right specialist, to what it means if an appointment is missed. And it's like, oh, damn, now I have to wait a month.
Or 6.
Or 6, yep. Like, you understand the need to have a summary document of here's everything that I'm going through. Here are all of my medications. Like, a lot of people can go through their entire life just like wandering into a doctor's office and being like, hey, this thing hurts. But like, we have to put together a dossier.
Yeah, truly.
But like, we have to put together a dossier.
Yeah, truly. Like, we have a file that's like, here are all the things that have been like, that have been tried. Here are all the things that haven't worked. Yep. Here are all the pain points. Here's all my comorbidities. Like, yeah, it's so much work.
Yes. And there's the best source for all of us is each other. Like, Reddit forums about like how to navigate this shit, so much more useful than like a doctor being like, here, let me tell you about the medical system.
100%.
We have all this docaganda of like TV shows and movies that show doctors as being like, And I'm like,
oh my God, they don't even start.
I know, right? I mean, you'll stop at insurance. Like, that will stop you. You'll stop at scheduling. That will stop you. Like, you'll stop because you don't have the right size latex gloves. Like,
It's so true.
many things.
Many things, anything.
And I understand that a lot of doctors really, really want to help and are also really fucking frustrated at
the system and what the water they are being forced to swim in.
Yes. And, you know, it still fucking sucks for us, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, it still fucking sucks for us, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. We're just trying to survive, hopefully thrive.
One of the things I wanted to mention in reflecting back to you, like transmutating the things that you said into non-judgment, is less about, she doesn't understand this and she doesn't know this. She doesn't understand this and she doesn't know this. And I put, did you notice what I said before all of those?
You're having to experience that, or she's having to.
She's not demonstrating to you.
Ooh, yeah.
Because I think in a lot of, like, if you were to have a conversation with her and say, you don't understand this, she can argue that. Of course I understand. Someone, if you say, you're not demonstrating to me that you understand this.
That's juicy.
I know, right? Maybe she does understand, but it's not borne out in her behavior. It's not borne out in how she talked to you. Like, she's not, I'm just saying she's not demonstrating it in different words.
Just said 3 words that all mean the same thing.
That's right.
No, but that's like that fine linguistical change is super impactful, I feel like, because like if someone's coming at me and saying like XYZ about my motivation in the moment, it's about my motivation in the moment. It's not often, like, sometimes it's incorrect. And then that creates this defensiveness and such. But like, yeah, if someone were to come at me and say, like, you're not demonstrating this to me, like, that gives me pause of like, oh, well, how can I demonstrate that better? / like, what's the breakdown here? That better? / like, what's the breakdown here?
Exactly. It creates an opening for something.
Yeah.
As opposed to, but I do understand, like, that defensiveness, which kind of closes things.
Totally. And like you said, is impossible to prove. And you're just like dancing around each other instead of actually engaging in any meaningful interaction. Ooh, you're not demonstrating.
Yes. Yep. Because, like, we actually don't know what she understands. We don't know. There's a lot of things we don't know about her lived experience that you've seen her do.
Yeah.
It may be that she spends all day on Saturdays at, like, I don't know, children's hospitals, talking, like, really caring for folks with disabilities. And in her relationship with you, there are things she's not demonstrating. There are things she's not demonstrating. There are things you're not seeing her do. Which, again, creates an opportunity. If she were to want to change things, that's an opportunity for her to be like, oh, I am doing this thing. Anne's just not seeing it. How can I show it to Anne then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How can I bring it into...
How can I show it to Anne then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How can I bring it into my interactions with Anne?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that also removes some of the intensity of emotion from my side as well, at least in this role play, about her motivation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm being more like, well, here's what your action is communicating.
It becomes then almost exclusively about her behavior.
Yeah.
And not about, like, you're being an asshole, like...
Yeah, you're a bad person.
Yes. It's just, I'm not seeing this behavior from you. Like, so you think I'm an asshole? I'm like,
Oh, well, yes, but I didn't say that.
Yes. Point of clarification. But it's just like, hey, I'm not seeing this behavior. So show me this behavior then. Yeah. Rather than you're an asshole. Yeah. So being an asshole, which really isn't all that much of that's not a great direction to give someone.
Yeah, it's not helpful feedback.
Yeah. Like, stop being ableist, I think, is also, or like, stop being racist, stop being sexist. Those are hard directions to follow if you receive that direction. sexist, those are hard directions to follow if you receive that direction.
Yeah.
Because it's almost all of us will go, but I'm not that.
Yeah, exactly. Which is then easier to dismiss.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, because it doesn't encourage any sense. Like, it's very easy to just deflect, like, well, that doesn't apply to me. Because
Exactly.
I'm not racist. Like, well, that doesn't apply to me. Because I'm not racist. I'm not able.
Right, because we also have beliefs about what that looks like.
Yeah.
That person over there
with the KKK hood on.
Yes, that's what a racist looks like, and I'm not wearing that hood, ergo.
Yeah.
So to me, how our conversation had been going so far, we're getting into validation. Like, I was more validating your experience, and one of the key components of validation is non-judgment. It's not like, oh, you were an idiot yesterday, and it makes total sense that you were an idiot yesterday. Like, we don't do that.
How very validating while judging.
Yeah, describe her behavior towards you in a non-judgmental way. Mm-hmm. I would say that she was being an asshole. That's not right. Though that's the first thing I thought of. I was like, she's just being a dick, man.
Perfect. Summed it up. That. Well, that in and of itself was very validating, so thank you.
Yes. Well, and certainly, like, I'm having the thought that she's an asshole. You're having the thought that she's an asshole. It makes sense that we're having those thoughts because she's acting way out of alignment with our values of, like, how friends.
Yes.
And just disabled people in general. Well, people in general, for that matter.
Yeah. Yeah, just any human being.
Any human being. So I would say that well, so let me say what I heard you say with the judgments, and then I'm going to So she stopped communicating with you without communicating about stopping communicating.
Yeah, just disappeared.
And that, of course, brought up a lot of thoughts and feelings on your end. And here's describing her behavior and less about the impact that it had on you.
Yeah.
When she did finally communicate with you, she did not communicate willingness to hear the emotional impact of her lack of communication, on you. Mm-hmm. And you did not have the experience that she was hearing you when you were telling her about the impact of that.
Yeah.
And that's the non-judgmental way of saying she judged the fuck out of you for feeling angry. Mm-hmm. And then didn't she also say something like, you've given up, or you've...
Yeah, kind of in so many words, basically the idea is you've let your life become very small, and yeah, what are you doing with yourself, with your life?
Right. So she communicated that she was having judgments about the nature of your life, and expressed displeasure, and did not communicate any sort of validation around that your behavior was caused by a dramatic change in your health status.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was no acknowledgement of that at all.
Right. And she also communicated that did she communicate that she wasn't interested in being friends anymore?
This is why, again, this situation is so weird and hard to wrap my head around, because no, she didn't say those words. But when I pressed about, okay, well, why did you ghost me? And I've been reaching out to you, and like I sent you a birthday present and all these things, and like you flaked on set dates and times we had agreed to meet on Zoom, etc. She was like, well, I just didn't want to. I didn't want to be around you. I didn't want to spend time with you. I just yeah, I didn't want to. Okay. You could have said that. I mean, it would have sucked to hear that, but it would have been better than nothing.
Yes.
She did also ask at some point in the conversation, like, if we were to meet now, on the street? Would we be now on the street? Would we be friends? Like, do we have anything in common anymore? I know that's like been rattling around in my brain quite a bit because pretty much every time I do something, I'm like, oh, look, there's something she and I have in common. Like we both have dogs and we weren't dog people growing up and we love our dogs. We are both master gardeners. Like we love working in the garden. We like are avid readers. We both love art and making art. Like there's so many things we still have in common. So I'm also a little bit like, how much of that is actually true versus just what she's saying to get out of being around me.
Right. You see all the ways that you guys are still compatible. She's focusing on the ways that you were not. You don't know. You actually don't know her true motivation for not wanting to spend time with you. You know what she's told you her motivation is.
Yeah.
But as we've learned with interpersonal communication, it's a question of, does she know the real reason? Is she communicating the real reason? Are cases where breakdown can happen?
Absolutely.
So there's also like, you're in this shitty position of having to accept that you don't know like the actual reason. You only know what she's told you and how she's behaved.
It's this decades long tried and true friendship.
Yeah.
Of like, I really don't have a good sense of what happened. Like I can't know for sure, as you say.
Welcome back to the future conversation that just cracked me up. So I've just been over here chuckling to myself as I've been listening back to it. It's delightful. I wanted to mention there's going to be a part 2 of this that's going to focus a bit more on the experience of disability and validation aspects. But there's a lot of overlap between the skill of non-judgment and validation. So I want to touch very briefly on validation here. I will discuss it in much greater detail in part 2 of this conversation, which should be posted in the next week. So I'm going to be reading out 17, which, as you might have guessed, is in the interpersonal effectiveness module of the DBT manual. And handout 17 is entitled Validation. Validation means finding the kernel of truth in another person's perspective or situation. Verifying the facts that a person's emotions, thoughts, and behaviors have causes and are therefore understandable. Not necessarily agreeing with the other person, not validating what is actually invalid. There were a lot of times in that conversation you just heard where I was validating my sister, and validating her experience, validating that she had the thoughts that she had. Yes, you had those thoughts. Yes, those thoughts came from somewhere. Rather than validating, yes, your conclusion is correct. You know, if she says that validating, yes, your conclusion is correct. You know, if she says that she thinks her friend was being a bitch, I'm like, I can understand why you would have that thought, rather than saying, yes, you are correct, she was being a bitch. Even when I was like, to reflect back what I heard, she was being an asshole. Like, I don't want to validate, like, that's not the fact of what happened. I'm having the thought that her friend was being an asshole. It makes sense that I would have that thought because I don't like the behavior that her friend was displaying. I don't like the impact that it had on my sister. It makes sense that and it is a fact that I had that thought. But the conclusion of that thought, that her friend was an asshole, is not fact. That's a judgment that I'm having. It feels a little bit like getting into the weeds, but it's actually not. I know it can sound like it's getting really pedantic and getting into semantics and whatnot, but I think the distinction is really, really important, that it is a fact that my sister had the experience she had the feelings that she had the thoughts that she had the judgments that she had. All of those things make sense It makes sense that she had those thoughts and the judgments that she had. All of those things make sense. It makes sense that she had those thoughts and feelings and judgments. And those thoughts and feelings and judgments don't necessarily point to the fact of who her friend is. There's a lot we don't know. And as I said at the beginning of the episode, judgments are aggressive certainty. Our brains fucking hate uncertainty. And if you have any sort of trauma, your brain hates it even more. So our brains are desperate to find. And I don't know that certainly for myself, putting all my energy into trying to avoid uncertainty isn't the effective thing for me to do. I think the more effective thing for me to do is to practice acceptance around uncertainty, resilience around uncertainty, that all of us would rather just declare that person's an asshole. And it's not necessarily the most effective thing to do. Now, granted, this relationship is over now. Like, my sister is not in relationship with her former friend anymore. So one could argue, well, what's the harm of labeling that person a former friend anymore? So one could argue, well, what's the harm of labeling that person an asshole? And that's a fair point. I agree, that's a fair point. For myself, even with people who I no longer am interacting with, relationships that I'm no longer engaging in, I think the reason why I would want to practice non-judgment around that is because when all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail. If I'm continuing to practice judgment, it gets in the non-judgment. And non-judgment is actually a tool that I want to have at my disposal. There are times when I want to use it. And if I'm not practicing it, even with relationships that are over and done with, like, those are actually great relationships to practice it with, because they're over. I'm not interacting with that person anymore. I can just non-judgment. Can be like, I don't like that person's behavior. That person's behavior was really painful for me. I wish that they had behaved in a different way. That's useful. That practice is useful and is helpful for me when I'm interacting with people that I interact with, like in my daily life. It's kind of like if I want to learn how to drive to, I don't know, a park, and I want to learn how to get there on surface streets. If every time I drive there, I take the freeway, I'm not figuring out how to get there on the surface streets. Because the only way to learn how to get there on the surface streets, is to repeatedly drive there on the surface streets. If I'm driving on the freeway, I'm not practicing the other thing I want to learn. I'm not practicing how to get there in this other way. And I feel like judging is the same kind of thing. It's absolutely useful in a bunch of circumstances, but every time I use that, I'm not using non-judgment, and I want to practice non-judgment. I think it's vital for the relationships that I do want to foster and grow, because as I mentioned earlier, relationship is really hard to be in relationship with somebody who's judging you. It's really hard for me to be in a relationship with someone if they're judging me, and it's also hard for me to be in a relationship with someone if I'm judging them. It doesn't feel good in either case. Yeah, that's my saying. What is the utility of practicing non-judgment even after a relationship has ended? And I think it's also useful to practice non-judgment, like, both towards the other person, but also towards myself. Like, oh, it makes sense that I'm having the reaction that I was having. It makes sense that I'm having the thoughts that things make sense and come from somewhere, even if they don't point to the objective fact about that situation or about that other person. So part 2 of this conversation will be in the following episode, and we're going to talk a bit more, my sister and I, about relationship loss, grief, the trauma of relationship loss, especially when it's a long-term, very close, intimate friendship. And commensurate with all of that, I'm also going to be going much more deeply into validation, what it is, why we do it, also how to validate. So that will be next episode. Stay tuned. Same bat time. There is no bat time. Like, I'm so inconsistent with when I publish these. It's just, whenever I get around to it. So anyway, keep a weather eye out. Is that your eyes open? Keep your eyes peeled. Gross. For that. And before I forget, I wanted to offer up a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters, and the very same one who is on today's episode, and Ruth. You all are scintillating rubber-lipped stingrays. You all are scintillating rubber-lipped stingrays and are 92.7% of the reason that this podcast exists for public consumption. So thank you very, very much. And if you, dear listener, would like to support this podcast, the link to my Patreon is in the description. So thank you all for listening to this podcast. The link to my Patreon is in the description. So thank you all for listening, and I'm just going to do my usual thing and end this super abrupt. This has been Let's Therapize That Shit with your host, me, Joy Gerhard. If you like, subscribe and tell your friends about it. I'll see you next time. Intro and outro music is Swan Lake Opus 20 by Tchaikovsky, performed by the London Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Anatoly Fistulari, and released on LP by Richmond High Fidelity London Records in 1952.